The EP Podcast. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found, and always at theeppodcast.com.
And welcome into the EP Podcast. My name is Chris Lanuti. Hannah is off this week, but do not worry. We have a full show for you. Even after a weekend of technical difficulties, some of you ended up with the weekend update on Friday. Some of you got it on Saturday. Some of you got two shows under two different names, and I'm still trying to figure out what happened. But things back on track. 30 minutes of good in a world of dumb may go a little bit longer today, and that's because we've got a big guest here in moments that is running for mayor of Evergreen Park. It's all brought to you by the First National Bank of Evergreen Park. The holidays will look different this year. However, you plan to celebrate, you should have banking tools that support you. With Total Access Checking from First National Bank of Evergreen Park, managing your money is easy. It only takes $100 to open. And then they even refund the fees from any ATM nationwide. You'll have easy access to your money when you need it, plus a little extra this season. In a year that's been unpredictable, they want to give you something you can count on. Learn more at bankevergreenpark.com/holidays. Member FDIC. Even though they couldn't get down here to the 9-foot homemade oak bar in my basement this year, the Evergreen Park High School Madrigal Choir recorded several songs for us over the years. They'll be sprinkled throughout this show. And a local businessman and podcaster, I listened to his podcast and it saved me a bunch of money. I thought it was so cool what I learned on it. I wanted him to come on so I could tell the story and plug his show. Before we get to any of that though, last week you heard it here, folks. Mayor James Sexton explaining why he was no longer going to continue being the mayor of Evergreen Park, and that this April there will be a new mayor. And the front runner early on, State Representative Kelly Burke. She's on the line with us right now. Hi, Kelly.
Hi, Chris. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
Well, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. Before we get into, all the stuff I want to ask you about, because your name just magically appeared last week, and you're on the tip of everybody's tongue in Evergreen Park because you were the I don't want to make an endorsement, but you should go vote for Kelly Burke that Mayor Sexton said on this show last week when he told everybody that he wasn't going to be the mayor anymore. But before we get to that, how's everything going with the holidays? How's the family? Everybody safe? Are you in the hustle and the bustle right now, trying to get ready for the big weekend?
Yeah, everybody's good. Just trying to wrap up some Christmas shopping. And just trying to make the plans for Christmas and, figure out how we're going to do this.
It's like one of those uncomfortable conversations you have to have with family.
Right. And everybody's got different levels of anxiety and concern, and you just have to navigate those and respect where everybody's at.
Trust me, we're all going through it. Just like the other day, I noticed that my sister was pointing out to me that she started her pre-Christmas quarantine 48 hours earlier than mine, as if to say, if mom and dad get sick, it's your fault. So it's the holidays. It's the holidays for everybody.
Well, and sibling rivalry, right? I'm a better quarantiner than you.
Yeah, if anybody kills mom and dad, it's going to be you. That's pretty much what I was told on the phone the other day. All right, let's get to the good stuff here. Mayor James Sexton, after about 40 years in public service in Evergreen Park and 20 as the mayor, decides that he's not going to be the mayor anymore. And so there's going to be an election coming up here in the spring. And you have filed to run for mayor. I actually read that. I learned that he was recommending you in his letter, and then when he came on the show a week ago, we were the first people that he publicly sat down and answered questions with about his decision and the fact that he was leaving, and he endorsed you. He basically said she's got great connections because she's a state representative. She's been working within our local government recently as a village trustee. She's got good ideas, and once I get out of the way, there's big things ahead for Evergreen Park. So I guess my first question is, how does this come about? Like, does he call you up and say, hey, Kelly, I'm retiring and I think you should be the mayor? Or is it something you had an interest in beforehand? How does this happen?
Well, so, I've worked with Mayor Sexton for a long time in a lot of different capacities. So, I had been on a village commission way back when. I think it was the beautification commission back when, they were redoing 95th Street. And then I was a Evergreen Park Library trustee for a long time. And while I was president, we did the reconstruction of the library, put on the addition, made it into the beautiful place it is today. And that wouldn't have been possible without the cooperation of the village government. So I really kind of got to work with Mayor Sexton and know him a bit through that project. And then, as I evolved into different roles, we shared a lot of events together. We sponsored a triathlon, indoor triathlon that we used to run every winter at the high school. And, we've also done more serious things, partnering together on railroad issues. Evergreen was able to be part of a lawsuit that the city of Chicago was involved in against CSX to try and address some of the train issues we were having, several years ago when they started running more and more trains through. And then, it's always a perpetual struggle with the post office to try and improve service there. And we've done a lot of partnering in that. So, we had a real good working relationship and had worked together and had, a mutual respect from the things we had worked on together. And then as, trustee, got to see more about, the workings of the village government. So it was a productive relationship. There had been rumors that the mayor was thinking about not running again. And so I put my name out there and said, if you're not interested in running, I'd appreciate being considered, for the spot.
Wow. And so, yeah, because people don't get it. It's kind of interesting. It's funny. Like I made a comment, I made a few jokes on the last show that, I don't remember an election because he's always just been the mayor since I've lived here. And before that, it was Mayor Vacco. So like elections for mayor are not like a thing that is, it's not the event that it is, let's say, in the city of Chicago. Like it's just
exactly
not that in Evergreen Park. But what people don't understand is there's actually a political party in Evergreen Park. And so just like any other political party, they have meetings and they go, we would like to run this candidate for this position and this candidate for this position. And so is that how that works? Like you went to that party or you were a part of that party and you were like, I want to say it's the Good Government Party. I always forget it, but it was.
Yes, United Homeowners Good Government.
That's right.
So I'm not a officer in the United Homeowners. Jim is for sure. I forget who all the other officers are.
But there's officers in it.
I don't have it on the tip of my tongue.
Right. But the way I'm trying to explain it to people, it's just like there's a Republican Party and there's a Democrat Party and there's a Libertarian Party. There's this local government party and they run a ticket and you're the mayoral candidate on that ticket is what it is, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Right. A slate, they call it. There
you go. That because it's funny when I started seeing comments that people put up when we put up our show last week, and I see things like that, and some people are like, they have elections? Like, how does this work? And I think it's like one of those things that people don't get how it goes, and which is great that you're willing to come on and chit chat with me. So first off, it's a big undertaking. You've been on the show before. I've asked you, like, when you became village trustee, I was like, you're going to do this and you're going to be state rep. Well, now you're going to be state representative and mayor at the same time, I'm reading. So that's a lot to do. Can you, for anybody that sits down and goes, wow, that's an awful lot to do. Those are two big posts. How is she going to be able to do both of them? What's your answer?
Right. Well, I think it's very much a positive, and I would bring some great experience to the mayor's office. And if you think of other local legislators who have served in two roles, one that comes to mind is former state senator Maggie Crotty from Oak Forest, who was also the Bremen Township supervisor, another executive position for a long, long time. And there's many others who have successfully had those dual roles in Springfield and local government. And I think my experience in Springfield, it gives me a lot of insight into the challenges municipal governments face. And then, conversely, my long experience in local government, not just as a trustee, but as a library board member, and now hopefully as mayor, helps me to shape better policy for, all local governments in the state.
Is it one of those things, because I can imagine it's a interesting double-edged sword, because on one hand, you have connections with other state officials and a bigger group of people you can go to work with to get things done for Evergreen because of your position as a state representative. While on the other hand, though, there's going to be days you're going to have to go down to Springfield and somebody else is going to have to handle the day-to-day stuff, or at least you're going to have a right-hand man or right-hand woman that does that for you, right?
Well, there's, as we're all seeing from COVID, the adaptation and the technology enabling people to work remotely extremely productively has changed a lot of things. So there will be days when I'm not physically at Village Hall, but there won't be a day when I'm not, working for the people of the Village of Evergreen Park. And we have some fantastic people. First of all, Kathy Aparo, our village clerk, veteran village clerk, one of the best. She's a master clerk. She's taken all the training and certifications that you can get and does a tremendous job. And she's an on-site presence all the time, and we have a great staff and we have great department heads. So, you're in more of a manager position as mayor and working with some great people and making sure everything gets done.
Are you a CFO, HR professional, or owner of a company, big or small, and you're tired of the typical health insurance premium increases each and every year? Out of control premiums with no end in sight. Well, now there is the Elite Benefits Formula. This process has saved employers and their employees thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars each year. These strategies are avoided by most insurance professionals, and the insurance companies definitely do not want you to know about them. But Elite Benefits of America is ready to help you. Just about all employers in the Chicagoland area can now take advantage of some or all of these strategies and start saving money. Butch Zemar from Elite Benefits of America wants you to reach out to him today. Visit elitebenefits.net or call 708-535-3006. Mayor Sexton always had this thing where we would get stories from people like he would see somebody looking at a building and he would stop his car and he'd be like, what are you doing? He's like, well, I'm thinking about buying a restaurant here, but we really don't like this building. And then he would drive around and find a building to bring the business in. Like he was extremely hands-on. Do you feel any pressure to keep that up? Because it's one of those things that people have started to kind of rely on in Evergreen Park. It's like the guy just pops up everywhere and fixes like these little problems while he's still running the mayor's office. Like, is that something that you're aware of and that you're like, wow, people are going to probably expect this, right?
People expect it, and I think it's a great way. It's a great way to be as mayor. And one thing I've noticed, and I heard you speaking like this, when I listened to your podcast, and I've just heard it from other people, and I feel this way personally too, is that, people feel like Mayor Sexton really personally cares about them. Not only just he cares about the people of the Village of Evergreen Park, but he cares about them personally because he would take the time to do those personal things. And I think I've acted in the same way, with a much broader stroke with being state representative, and I would continue that. I think it's a fantastic way for public servants to act, and I would continue it.
First of all, I want to say that I saw your name on the thing, and I was like, oh, I like Kelly.
Oh, thank you. That was nice.
I like Kelly. I mean, I was like, that's a good name. Like, there were a couple of people in my head that I always thought, like, if he left, it'd probably be this trustee or this trustee. There was part of me I never considered it would be you because you were a state rep. But then when I saw it, I was like, I like her. I get along with her. We've talked many times, off the air at different events and stuff. I think that you do a wonderful job in this position. I also feel like while I'm answering these questions here, though, I got to kind of like address like some of the weird elephants in the room because those are the questions that people want me to ask you.
Yeah,
so
sure.
I hope you don't mind. But, I'm thinking about the pandemic, right? And it struck me that Evergreen kind of had we have to take care of this village, to the point where when the second lockdown happened, Evergreen Park's policy, they stated it on this show. We had several, from the mayor to one of the village trustees, Mark Marzullo, made it a point to state on this show publicly, we can't enforce these laws. Like, we're not going to be able to enforce all these. And let's be honest, that was a way of Evergreen Park basically saying we're not going to kill our small businesses. If you want to do these things, then you come and enforce it. And they know very well that the state can't enforce it. But on the other hand, you're more entrenched in state government. Would you have any fear? And I want to give you a chance to kind of dispel this because I've heard this from other people. Would you have any fear that Springfield would put weight on you to force you to have to act a different way in Evergreen that wouldn't be in Evergreen's interest? Or is that a crazy idea that some people might have, that the governor or somebody that you work with down in Springfield will be like, no, Evergreen's got to fall in line, where in reality Evergreen acted very independently during this pandemic?
Yeah, I think that's a crazy idea that some people have, to use your words. The beauty of the differing levels of government is that things have been left up not only to local government to handle, but to local school districts, and that flexibility, you're seeing that all over the place, because most towns are acting in the same way that Evergreen Park is. And, most school districts, at least around here, have, tried to do things that reflect what the families in their districts want. And, like for instance, in Evergreen Park, it was, the hybrid model. Most around here have tried that hybrid model. So it's definitely more of a distinction between the state government and the local government. So I don't see that would be a problem.
Okay, that's the last question I'm taking off of Facebook page. So we're through those now, okay?
Well, Facebook,
So now here's the thing. Let's get to some fun stuff. First off, I stated on this show last week that I would very much like some crazy mayoral candidates to run. I'm not saying I want any of them to beat you, but do you anticipate anybody running against you? And is there a possibility that we could get some real fun here during this? Because if somehow somebody ran against you, I want to host a debate. That's all I want. Well, okay.
I think you and I have two different definitions of fun, but but not that I've heard of, but who knows? We'll find out. The filing, is ongoing right now. So we'll see what pops up in the next day or two. But just talking about some of the Facebook comments, I think one of the things that I always get a sense of when people talk about some issues with public servants and whatnot, people who work for the government, is what kind of is sensitive with them is pensions, right? That always comes up. They're doing this for a pension, blah, blah, blah. And I just want to, I don't take a pension as state representative. I have no pension, and I'm not going to take one as mayor.
Really? Wow. So you're not, you're basically saying like, I have, because you were an attorney, right? So you're like, I have my career. I saved my money. I'm not looking to add a pension or anything like that. I just want to serve Evergreen Park.
Exactly. I enjoy public service.
I do too, but I could never take on being a mayor. I would see you now. You got to be like, you got to be nervous now. Mayor Sexton, like I couldn't get the guy to come down and sit at my bar. Like you're not going to stop doing interviews with me, right? At the 9-foot homemade oak bar, because who
was one of the first people who came and sat at your bar, and I wasn't drinking because it was Lent, so You owe me a beer.
I do. Okay, great. Because I could never get the guy to come down here because I think he was like nervous about the perception of it. But you sound like you're going to be fun, Kelly. So now if there's a
I think you've probably noticed this. Maybe as you've interviewed different people who are in elected office, if you have to like people. Or you should like people if if you're in public office, and and you have to be willing to listen to people, because not everybody has the full understanding of the whole picture, and they have, one issue that's so important to them. And even if you're not able to fix it, you still have to, listen and hear what they're saying. And, I think Mayor Sexton does a great job of that. I think that's a strength that I have as well.
Well, before I let you go, is there an event, especially when the world reopens again, and I'm starting to feel more and more confident that it's right here around the corner, Is there an event that Evergreen Park does or maybe doesn't do that you want to do that you're looking forward to the most if you become mayor?
Well, so we do have a couple ideas for some new events, but I'm going to save those because I don't know I don't know when we're going to be able to do them. But everybody always enjoy. I mean, obviously the 4th of July parade and the fireworks are such a fun event. But those are big, enormous events. You don't always get to spend the time talking to people individually because it's such a production and such a big crowd. So I always enjoy day in the park as long as it's not 950 degrees. So I'm looking forward to that. Just looking forward to all the little things. The Christmas tree lighting. The different school pageants. Baseball season. All the baseball parade. The homecoming parade. Just all the things that really just make up our community and tie people together. I'm hoping that 2021 is much brighter and we're able to connect in those ways again.
Well, Kelly Burke, I'm actually going to vote in a mayoral election because I didn't even know that we had them. So this has been very eye-opening for me. And like I said, I was excited when I saw your name on the piece of paper, just because of the fact that the two of us have talked from time to time. We met because of this show, and you're just such a pleasant person to be around, and you're nice enough to come on my show. And I don't want somebody getting elected. It's gonna be like I'm not coming on that EP podcast. So I'm kind of excited that you're running for mayor and that you seem to be the odds-on favorite.
Well, thank you. I'm really excited about it too, and I look forward to connecting with people, and talking to them about the issues that they think are important to the future of Evergreen Park. It's with COVID, obviously, we have to rework how having a traditional type campaign, is a little difficult. So we're going to have to brainstorm the other people on the slate, Clerk Kathy Aparo and our 3 trustees, Norm Anderson, Carol Kyle, and Mark Phelan, and figure out the best way to connect to people in a way that is comfortable for them, so we can hear, where they see the village going in the future and, what their concerns are. But we'll figure it out, and we'll, connect with people and hopefully be victorious in April.
Well, why don't you just gather them all together and walk around and do Christmas carols next week? Just start off that way. And have somebody hold a sign that says all these people are running for office, vote for them while you sing. I got an idea. See right there, I'm your campaign manager.
That is actually an excellent idea.
State Representative Kelly Burke, who also would like your vote for the next mayor of Evergreen Park. Thanks so much for stopping in, Kelly.
Thanks, Chris, and have a great Christmas, and hope everybody stays healthy.
Building relationships, supporting the community, and service. These are the things that Country Financial stands for. They're more than just an office you may pass by as you drive through Evergreen Park. They're neighbors who lend a helping hand and support the fabric of your community, including charitable organizations, sports, financial education, and civic organizations. And since Country is already your neighbor, they want to get together and chat. Call your local Country Financial representative, Mike Thauer, today at 708-425-1559 to talk about the things that are important to you and how he can help you protect them.
Sing with gladness, 'tis the season. Let your hearts be filled with cheer. Light the candles, hang the holly. Christmas Day is almost here.
Sing with gladness, 'tis the season. Let your hearts be filled with cheer. Light the candles, hang the holly. Christmas Day is here.
Oh, what fun, a heart with gladness. Oh, what fun, a friend indeed. Oh, what fun, the season's madness. Oh, what fun, the drum and reed.
Fill your girth with hearty pleasure. Take delight in sweet. Giving gifts of childhood pleasure. Sleighing rides on streets.
Oh, what fun, a heart with gladness. Oh, what fun, a friend indeed. Oh, what fun, the season's madness. Oh, what fun, the drum and reed.
Fa la 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 la, fa la la la, fa la 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 la, fa la la la. Sing with gladness, 'tis the season. Let your heart be filled with cheer. Like the candles, hang the holly. Christmas Day is finally here. Fa la 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 la.
Joining me down here at my 9-foot homemade oak bar in my basement. He's from Elite Benefits of America. You've heard the ad here on the EP podcast, but I have him down here because the EP podcast is part of the Broadcast Basement On Demand Radio Network. One of the podcasts that I've been producing as of late is the Zemar podcast, and Butch Zemar from Elite Benefits has his own podcast as well. And I was like, Butch, we haven't talked down here. So welcome down, buddy.
All right, thanks for having me.
A little different here because normally you come down, you record at the basement bar, and I help you put the thing together. But you're the guest today, so I hope you'll be able to handle that.
I'm sure I'll manage. Yeah, it's a little different, but hey, let's go with it, right? The only thing we're missing is the beer, right?
Right, exactly.
Where's John,
exactly.
right, when you need him?
We should have John Brand out here while we were doing this. All right, so I sit down every week and work on your podcast where you talk about insurance benefits, really for businesses. Like that's what you do, right? You set up insurances for small businesses, big businesses, but basically like these are the right plans you should have for your employees. This is what saves the business money. This is what helps the employees. You kind of break down a very difficult thing for people to figure out, correct?
Yes, you nailed it. Yeah, for sure.
It's like a spider web.
Yeah.
And you're just like, well, how does this work, right? And I've never known enough about it. Like I was a guy who was on his father's City of Chicago Police Department insurance that he was able to keep me on until I was 25 years old. By then I was already working at radio stations around the country, and they always offered great insurance packages. The media seems to have really good setups, at least when I was in it. And then when I got out of it, very shortly after I got out of radio, my wife was working for a massive bank. So she had solid insurance. And then I went to work for the Cook County Sheriff's Police as a 911 dispatcher. And I would walk in and I would have a $3 copay and everything was paid for. Like if a kid fell down and was like, I think my arm is broken, they're like, well, we'll just go to the ER because it didn't cost me anything. And now starting a small business, I'm starting to realize that not everybody had insurance as good as me my entire life, right? It's very different for most other people.
Yeah, I call that spoiled.
Yeah.
Yeah. You were very much spoiled along the way, and a lot of Americans actually are faced with the same decisions later in life. Could be you moving into the entrepreneurship route. It could be forced layoffs. And so the reality check comes in. The cost was always there. I always give the example is you got teenagers, you're paying for everything all through college. They're finally old enough to go on their own. And they're like, whoa, it's expensive to do all this. Well, yeah, but we were taking care of it before you were that old enough to take care of it on your own. The cost was always there.
Right. So in reality, I was getting paid far less in my paycheck because my company had to pay a ridiculous amount of money for the insurance. Like when I left Cook County, they're like, you could stay on and pay what we were paying for it. And it was like $1,800 a month to have that kind of insurance out of my pocket if I wanted to keep it.
Hey,
so it was valuable insurance.
I was going to say, that's pretty low compared to the benefits you were receiving.
Wow, I got a deal.
Yes,
all right.
You got a deal.
Okay, but the thing that I got from your show is that now I'm out on my own and we're using my wife's insurance, which is terrible. I mean, it's got, I'm like, oh man, if I go to the doctor, I'm like paying the whole bill. Like, I'm like, this is terrible because it's the first time I've been away from my spoiled insurance in my entire life. And you did an episode where you were talking about understanding your insurance plan. And it made a lot of sense. You're like, if I have a car, I might look at the manual. I'll go into the mechanic and I might shop for prices. And if I have auto insurance, I'll sit back every 6 months and be like, do I really need this deductible? Is it really worth what I'm paying? And it's something people don't do with their health insurance. And in the middle of that explanation, it might have been the same show or a different one, you were trying to explain that, your insurance might be different than it was 10 years ago, but look for the perks because somewhere in there's a way to do things cheaply. And I'll give you an example of how you saved me a ton of money. After doing that, I got an ear infection. I could tell it was an ear infection. I knew what it was. I knew that I had burst an eardrum 12 years ago, partially when I was landing. It was a quick landing coming back from overseas. I had a clogged up head to begin with. The plane came down a little bit too quick, and I had this massive problem with it. I've been told by doctors, like every once in a while, you get a little bit too much fluid in your ear, you're going to get an infection there. You're going to have to clear it up with antibiotics. But with the new insurance, I knew I was going to have to pay some ridiculous price to go see the doctor and all this other stuff. and you were talking about this teledoc thing. So I go to my wife. I'm like, we got teledoc? She goes, what's that? I'm like, I don't know. I was doing Butch's podcast, and he's talking about how a lot of these insurance companies have teledoc. So I look it up. I got free teledoc. I was on a phone with a doctor. Everybody else's insurance is different, but I'm just giving my example of what I learned from you. Because of you, I knew I should look to see if I had the option. Then I download the app. Then I get on the app with a doc within 10 minutes. I tell him what the problem is. He sends a prescription to the CVS up the street. I don't have any charge for it because that's included in the insurance if I go to teledoc instead of paying to walk into the office. So I tried something new. And then because it's so expensive on her insurance to go see a doctor, the flip side is the prescriptions were better. So in the end, it cost me $1.57 from the moment I used teledoc app to getting the prescription that cleared up the ear. And if I would have done it the way I'm used to doing it, it would have cost me hundreds of dollars. So, I mean, that's the thing, right? Understand what your insurance does.
For sure. Definitely understanding what's there, and then it'll give you the ability to even make changes in the future. But yes, understand what's there. There's perks in almost every policy, especially in current times, not just from the COVID era, but even prior. Teledoc is nothing new. It's been around for at least a decade.
Yeah, but spoiled me. Never heard of teledoc.
Yeah, you're fortunate enough to even get back on your wife's insurance, which is probably better than what you could buy even on your own without enough information or even choices for that matter. And a lot of people are faced with those decisions, and then there's this high expectation of what it should be, right. and then they get super disappointed when they can't get access to the same benefits.
Yeah, and you're kind of the guy that kind of explains it. And I'm going to tell you something. I didn't even know guys like you existed out there because, again, spoiled. I just didn't understand how the whole thing worked. I've learned so much just listening to it, and I find Butch's shows to be really informative, and I think that you should reach out to Butch if you have any kind of questions. I thought you did a whole thing on Medicare, and I was like, wow, if I didn't know this, I would screw this up when I got to it. Because it was like, well, you got to apply for this by this point, or you end up with penalties, or you don't get the same care as what other people get because you didn't file the paperwork on time. And I'm like, I never heard of this stuff. So I mean, like there's so much that you can learn from it. So first of all, check out the ZMAR podcast. It's on all different podcast players. I want to say you're at the zmarpodcast.com.
Yes,
right?
That's correct.
Right, so you can check that out, or you can just check it out on any podcast player, whatever you're listening to the EP podcast on. You can subscribe to that as well. And then if somebody wants to reach out to you at Elite Benefits, I'm going to give you the plug because you saved me a ton of money just with your advice. So I'm giving you the plug, Butch.
Sure. They can call 708-535-3006. Otherwise, they go to elitebenefits.net, not the .com, but .net.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, bud.
All right.
Next time I'll have John Brand on here with some beer.
You bet. All right. Thanks for your time.
Does your financial advisor actually take time to listen to you? Is your financial strategy personalized for you and your family? Will your financial advisor be there as your life and financial situation changes? Why worry about those things when Tom Walsh is nearby? He's your local Edward Jones financial advisor. He works with you, focusing on what's important to you. He uses an established process to create personalized financial strategy, and he partners with you to help your strategy stay on track. Listen, families in South Chicagoland have been benefiting from Tom's get-to-know-you approach and do the right thing values for over 18 years. Contact my close personal friend and also a fellow Brother Rice alumni, Tom Walsh. He's your local Edward Jones advisor, located in Mount Greenwood, right outside of the EP at 111th and Kedzie. Member SIPC. My thanks to State Representative Kelly Burke, Butch Zemar also on the show, and the EP High School Madrigal Choir. As we head to the door on this episode, I want to let you know we're also heading to the door on 2020 here on the EP Podcast. This is the last show of the year. We return Friday, the 1st of January, 2021. And if pop culture and the media are to be believed, at that very moment, all will be right with the world and everything will be 100% back to normal. I'm going to take a little break, enjoy the holiday season. The day this show comes out, on Monday, the 21st of December, I know they're doing the drive-by Santa Claus thing over at the community center. We're going to scoop up the kids, we're going to put them in their PJs, we're going to get them some hot chocolates, and we're going to drive by and then go look at the lights in the area. It's important to take some time and just relax during the holiday season. My thanks to you for listening to this show. 2020 was a huge year for the EP podcast. Listener numbers through the roof. We really did solidify ourselves as part of the Evergreen Park community, and we're looking for bigger and better things in 2021, and it's all made possible by those of you who listen to the show and share it with your friends and tell people about it. I really and truly appreciate it. I want to say thank you very much. I want to wish you and yours a very Merry Christmas, and Hannah and I look forward to seeing you again at the beginning of 2021. Make sure you are subscribed to the show on whatever podcast player that you prefer so you don't miss it when we come back with the EP Podcast, found everywhere podcasts can be found and always at theeppodcast.com. Bye-bye, everybody.
Another show is wrapped up. Another show's in the books. Another show is wrapped up. And then by the looks, it's gonna be a good one. And we'll see you next week. And the nudist basement. And the nudist basement. Another show is wrapped up. Another show is wrapped up. Another show is wrapped up. And it's in the books. Another show is wrapped up. Another show is wrapped up. And by the looks, it's gonna be a good one. Nudist basement. Broadcast basement. The nudist basement. The broad basement. Slancha.
The EP Podcast. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found, and always at theeppodcast.com.